Today in this video essay, I'll be looking at how my 2-minute film opening uses and challenges typical conventions and how it represents social groups and issues. To start off with, here's a brief overview of my film. My film follows a group of teenagers who, after a night of drinking, commit a crime which they believe to have resulted in a murder. Following this, the boys involved receive objects, messages, and calls threatening the boys with knowledge of the crime. As a result, the boys attempt to hunt down and silence the anonymous man threatening them, whilst attempting to prevent the secret from going out any further. Initially, a convention of the thriller genre which I chose to follow was starting my film with a title and studio name. A convention of almost every film made is to start it with a studio logo or name, a convention which I followed. I chose not to go down the path of having a studio logo, but instead just the text. I chose this as the black and white text acts as a representation of the binary opposites between good and evil. This is a theme which my film reflects upon, and especially the thin line between the two. For the title, I was inspired by thrillers such as Gone Girl and Seven, which the title is within the first minute or two of the film. By starting with the title, it subconsciously keeps the title, pulse, in the audience's mind. In film, the title can be a clue or indicator for later events or act as a symbolic theme. For example, in There Will Be Blood, it reflects the violent and destructive nature of the protagonist. Or in To Kill a Mockingbird, it signifies the harm of attacking the innocent, as the mockingbird only sings and causes no harm, representing Tom Robinson and Boo Radley. For these reasons, I decided to start with the title as it acts as an indicator for the later plot, particularly as at the start it may not make sense, but it does by the end. For me, I see delaying the title cards of the movie as an effect which should be used in a film where the plot is almost built up to the film's title, such as in Batman Begins, as we see the journey Bruce took from becoming a billionaire at the start to Batman at the end. Therefore, the film ending with the title Batman Begins is fitting for the plot. However, in my case, the title does not reflect a journey, therefore I decided to include mine at the start. My film is a thriller, and the genre is embodied through the opening, as many typical thriller conventions are followed. The first convention which my project followed was the element of suspense, which is critical to any movie of the thriller genre. Throughout my opening, there is a build-up of tension as Toby, the main character, becomes aware that someone knows about the crime. One way which I did this was through the positioning of the camera. Initially, the camera is placed in front of Toby. This provides the audience with a personal connection with Toby and suggests that we will be aligned with him throughout the opening. This personal relationship is also built upon by the proximity between the camera and Toby's face. The close-up shot showcases his emotions and almost allows the audience to feel as if they are understanding his thought process. However, following the discovery of Toby's secret, this connection with the audience is shattered due to the audience not having full understanding of Toby and his actions. Thus, the camera is then positioned behind him. The camera positioning represents how Toby is hiding his secret and blocking the audience off from being able to fully connect and understand his character. The camera position behind Toby also acts as a representation that is being observed without his knowledge, which is later built upon when Toby leaves in a panic, as the camera is positioned behind Toby, giving the impression that he's been chased by someone. By positioning the camera behind Toby, it allowed me to include the element of foreshadowing, another key thriller convention. Foreshadowing is an indication to the future event and is used in numerous thrillers such as Fight Club, when the narrator beats himself up in his boss's office. When he references how it felt like his first fight with Tyler, this is an example of foreshadowing, as it indicates to the audience that the narrator's fights with Tyler are just self-harm. Another film which uses foreshadowing effectively is Shutter Island. Throughout the film, there are hints that Teddy is the 67th patient, such as how Teddy never has a cigarette lit by himself and always has to have someone else light them, as mental patients aren't allowed their own matches. Another example of foreshadowing in my product is the stair shot. When Toby is walking up the stairs, the camera is slanted, making the stairway look wonky. As Toby begins to go up the stairs, it reflects how he's going down a crooked path should he continue to keep his secret in. However, he doesn't fully go up, showing how there is potential for his redemption. Next is a shot of the plate being cleaned. While it reflects Toby as a family man, it also shows how he's covering up and cleaning away his past actions. Suspense is also built upon through the use of enigma codes, a central convention of the thriller genre. The enigma codes used in my product include the initial call and what was behind the curtains. The behind the curtain sequence was inspired by a quote I read from film director Alfred Hitchcock, who is known for his thriller movies such as Psycho, Vertigo, and Rear Window. The quote was, "There is no terror in the bang, only in the anticipation of it." To me, this quote meant that the uncertainty is more effective than the event itself. This is something that I aim to create by leaving out details such as what Toby saw and by starting the film with a time jump. This effect is also shown in other thriller movies such as Zodiac, Scream, and Seven. They create their anticipation through keeping the villain's identity anonymous through the majority of the film. Therefore, the audience spends most of their time watching with uncertainty as to who the criminal is. In terms of lighting, I aim to echo the sense of security through the use of bright lights and dark lights. While Toby is in the confidence that his secret is safe, he is under white lights. However, when he looks outside, it shifts to orange and darker shades. Another convention of the thriller genre which is represented in my product is the idea that the protagonist is at the mercy of the antagonist. As shown in films such as I Know What You Did Last Summer and The Final Destination, the protagonists are controlled by the antagonist's actions. For example, in The Final Destination, Death is hunting the teens and therefore they must attempt to cheat it in some form, which gives the antagonist the power. It's similar in I Know What We Did Last Summer, where the 4 teens have to balance both solving the identity of the man with the fish hook and preventing him from killing them before they solve it. This is also perfectly shown in the ending of Seven through how Mills is at John Doe's mercy, in the sense that John Doe's actions were designed to extract a certain reaction from Mills. I took inspiration from these films and gave the control to the antagonist. I did this through the anonymous man being aware of Toby's and the others' secrets, thus putting them at his mercy. A convention which I challenged in my product was that I established the characters before the locations. It isn't until around the 50-second mark that the location is revealed, however that's not to say it could not have been previously inferred. I chose to do this as I wanted to create the effect that the film is driven more by the characters and an emphasis is placed on connecting and understanding Toby's character rather than the setting he's in. As a result of showing the character first and then the setting, I believe that it contextualizes the story and that the setting acts as more of a backdrop rather than it being a centerpiece of the story. This is done so that it's clear to the audience that the characters are more important than the setting. The house is also part of the mise-en-scène used to create a sense that the stakes are high for Toby. I did this particularly through the use of props such as a filled washing rack, a fridge covered in magnets, and photos. These items give off the impression that my lead character is a family man, and thus to have a lot to lose if his secret got out, or it shows how the anonymous man could use Toby's family against him. This shows another convention I followed, as often the protagonist has a lot to lose. This convention is shown in thrillers such as Carry On, in which the protagonist has his future wife and job aspirations held against him. In my opening, there is only one character, meaning social groups are entirely represented through him. My product takes more of a focus on social issues. The main social issue which I focused on is the stereotype surrounding the reckless teen. In my product, it's made clear from the start that the teen characters have made a mistake and have attempted to cover it up. Similar to in I Know What You Did Last Summer, in which a crime is committed and the teens then cover it up, my film was designed to represent the consequences of reckless actions and the poor handling of them. This, in my product, is shown through Toby being threatened and driven to fear. Whilst the reckless teen stereotype is one which has been focused on in many movies, I feel that there is a lack of films displaying the consequences of actions. Whilst my film does take a dramatized and darker approach to human nature and consequence, I feel that throughout the film the message will come through that if mistakes are made, they should be handled in a proper way rather than attempting to cover them up. My product also represents a social class construct. My lead character will be a part of the middle class / upper working class established through the house. The social issues this is supposed to address is that it's not just the poor people and the lower class people who are penalized for their actions. My product is supposed to show that everyone should be held accountable and it doesn't matter what class you're in. This was inspired by films such as Scream, and as the main characters are all fairly well off and still at risk.